Okay guys, here we go with lesson 45 from Saxon 76. Make sure you have the worksheet that looks like the one on your screen out in front of you. This lesson has a few sections, so let's just get started with the first one, and it's writing decimal numbers in expanded notation. So as a review, let's go back and let's write something that we've already done in expanded notation. So that first one says 200. So when we're going to split up this 200 into hundreds, tens, and ones, we see that there are 2 in that hundreds place, there's nothing in the tens place, and nothing in the ones place. So I'm not going to put anything there. And then there's nothing in the tenths place, the hundredths place, or the thousandths place. So when I want to write this in expanded notation, I just have 2 times 100, because that's all that was there in my table. And we know that 2 times 100 is 200, so that's pretty straightforward. So let's do 19.3, or 19 and 3/10. So for this number, I have something in my tens place right here. I have a 1 in my tens place. I have a 9 in that ones place. And then over here in the 1/10 place, I have a 3. To write this one in expanded notation, I do the 1 times 10, but then I have to add on that 9 times 1, and then I have to add on this little 3, and he's times, well, look where he is. He's in the tenths. So that's 1/10. So there's 19 and 3/10 in expanded notation. The only thing I'd add is to keep things more organized, I'm going to put parentheses around each element, each element that represents each digit over here. It just makes it easier to see. All right, so let's do 467 and 8/10. So we look at what's in the hundreds place. Well, we've got a 4. What's in the tens place? That's a 6. What's in the ones place? That's a 7. Then we have this 8 in the tenths place, so he goes on the other side of that decimal. To write this guy out, I'm going to start with the parenthesis, and I'm going to do the first guy. That's a 4. 4 times what? Well, he's in the hundreds place. 4 times 100. Plus, well, my tens is next, and I've got a 6 there. 6 times 10. Plus 7 times 1. Plus, and then I have this 8 times 1/10. There you go. All right, here's one with more after the decimal. So I have 5, and let's figure out what this is back here. Well, here's the tenths place, here's the hundredths place, here's the thousandths place. So it's going to be named thousandths, and how many thousandths is it? 78. So here we go. We're going to put a 5 in the ones column. Well, I don't have anything in that little tenths place, so I'm going to put a 0 in there as a placeholder. Then I have a 7 in the hundredths place, and I have an 8 in the thousandths place. So to write this in expanded notation, I'm going to have 5 times 1, because that's in my ones, plus, well, I don't have anything in the tenths, so I'm just going to leave that blank. But I do have something in the hundredths place, so that's going to be 7 times 1/100th. And then I do have something in the thousandths place. That's going to be 8 times 1/1000. And there we go. There's the expanded notation for that 5 and 78 thousandths. All right, so here we go with this last guy here. I've got 1/100th. Well, I've got nothing over here. I've got nothing in my tenths place. I'll put a 0 there just as a placeholder. And a 1 in my hundredths place. So to write this guy out, I don't have anything times 100, times 10, times 1, even times tenths. All I have is 1 times 1/100th. That was an easy one. So that's the beginning of lesson 45. The next section of lesson 45 deals with different ways to represent multiplication. All of these forms, L with a little dot, W, that just means L times W. This is our standard form, L times W, that we're used to seeing. Now when you have variables like this, when you have letters holding places for where numbers are going to go, you can write those letters right up next to each other, and that also means multiplication. And here I've just put some parentheses in, L and then W in parentheses. Well, the L is right up against that parentheses, so that means times. And here I've just got parentheses around everybody. But whenever you have variables that are right up against each other or things that right up against parentheses, that just means multiplication. So going down for these bottom exercises, we have, what is m times n? And up here I'm given that m is 6 and n is 4. So m times n, which I write like that, just equals 6. Now I can't write 6 and then a 4 right next to it because that would look like 64. So when you have numbers, you might do it in parentheses like this, 6 times 4, or you could write 6 times 4, or you could write 6.4, and we know that 6 times 4 is 24. So for this guy, we've got m, and then n in parentheses, and then r. So m is 6, n is 4, and r is 2. And that just is 6 times 4 times 2. 6 times 4 is 24. I'll do it in little pieces, times 2. 24 times 2 is, you're right, 48. Here's another one with parentheses in different places, but it's the same letters. Look at this, M, M, N, N, R, R. It's the same multiplication, but it's in a different order, and I also stuck the parentheses in different places. So for n, let's put in what n is. N is 4, r is 2, I'll put dots in between this time, and m is 6. So we got 4 times 2 is 8 times 6, and 8 times 6 is 48. Now here's an important thing to notice. Check this out. Here I had MNR. Here I had MNR, but in a different order. I had NRM, so they just moved around. But I got the same answer in both cases. So you're going to notice that because for the next part of this lesson, we're going to talk about why that's true. So here's the last part of lesson 45, and it's about the commutative property of multiplication. Let me get my paper lined up here. All right, so for this first one, it doesn't look lined up yet. I'm trying to figure out why we're not lined up. There we go. Good enough. For this first one, it says 5 parentheses 3. Well, that's just 5 times 3, which is 15. Here's 3 times 5. What's 3 times 5? 15. So you notice all we did is we rearranged where these guys were, and you came out with the same answer. So what the commutative property of multiplication says is when you are multiplying numbers together, it does not matter what order you multiply your numbers in, you're going to come up with the same product. So let's do this sample down here because we have 3 numbers. We have 2 times 3 times 5. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, and I got to still multiply that by 5, and I get 30. Here's the same numbers. I got a 2, a 3, and a 5, a 2, a 3, and a 5. But this time, I'm going to do 3 times 5 first, which is 15, and then I'm going to multiply that by 2, and 15 times 2 is also 30. Okay, same numbers. Got 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, same numbers, different order. But this time I do 5 times 2 first, which is 10, and multiply that by 3, and I get 30. So all of these came out the same because I'm multiplying the same exact numbers together, just in a different order. So one of the things you're going to be asked to do for this lesson is to, it says, use the commutative property of multiplication to rearrange these factors from least to greatest. And this is pretty much a no-brainer. We just have to go through in order and figure out what's the smallest factor. Well, I don't have any ones. I don't have anything less than 2. So I'm going to start with the 2's. Let's circle those. I have 3 2's. So I have to go 2 times 2 times 2. Done with the 2's. Let's cross them off. My next smallest factor is this little 3 here. So I multiply by 3. There's no more 3's, so I can be done with that. Next smallest factor, well, I have a 5 and a 7 left, so 5 is going to be the next one. And then 7 will be my last one. There we go. That's all they're saying when they say rearrange them from least to greatest. So I started with 2's and I got bigger, bigger, bigger till I got to 7. So all that's saying is that when I multiplied out this, I get the same number as when I multiplied by this. That's it for lesson 45. We've got expanded notation and knowing what multiplication looks like and the commutative property. So go do lesson 45, get the problems done, and then you can do the video for lesson 46.